Yo, what is up YouTube, and welcome to today's video as we're going to try a new content idea, which is going to be patch rundown plus a full tier list of the new patch 14.7. Yesterday the patch was released. We're going to be talking about everything, especially regarding the top lane, but we'll also cover some of the other champions and the changes that are happening. And we're going to be doing a tier list centered around Iron to Diamond MMR, so we know what champions we'll be playing and what champions we should be avoiding on this patch. If you guys like this type of content, please let me know down in the comments below, because if it's received well, I might make more of this. Without any further ado, I hope you guys have an amazing day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to give me some feedback as well, and I'll see you guys there. Peace.
Every move you made, I was watching you.
If you are serious about improving and climbing to your desired league rank, you're in the right place. I've worked on laying out 2 courses that will help you in all aspects to improve. One is about all the fundamentals for the laning phase, and the other one goes in depth on tempo and the mid to late. I've been Challenger for 7 years, and I can guarantee you that this will massively speed up your process and reaching any goal that you have set in mind. Both courses have a preview video where you can see the style of the videos, so check those out before anything. You can also always join my Discord to check out some reviews. Alright, let's get into the video. In my opinion, this patch note is very interesting simply because they are nerfing a lot of things that I think are correct. It's a relatively small patch, and there are a few buffs, so they're nerfing Fiora, Rek'Sai, and Volibear, which is really good to see. I think all 3 have been too strong in top lane. Rek'Sai and Volibear, namely due to their sustain over everything, and Fiora just their overall kit. And then the buffs we'll take a look into. I think the most interesting changes are going to be regarding Olaf, actually, this patch. So they've added the new Gnar. I've played against it in top lane once yesterday, and he went for the Arcane Combat and the Domination setup. I can actually show you. It was a little bit of a weird game to play. It was right here. It was this one. I didn't think the Gnar felt that strong, and that is because he doesn't really have kill pressure onto you anymore at all. His Q poke is annoying. His Q poke in the early game was pretty annoying to deal with because his Q damages you in a very large AoE radius, then it slows you and gives him a shield, right? So that is pretty strong. But that's kind of all he has to do, and then he can pick up a boulder and throw it at you. Other than that, this champion feels like a super weak laner, so I don't think he is for top lane. And that is also because his ultimate is really hard to you can't E your opponent anymore, drag them into turrets, stun them, and kill them. Since you don't have that option anymore, I think this champion simply doesn't function in top lane and only gets played in the jungle. So my opinion, in short term, after just 1 game is already, I do not like Gnar for the top lane. Alright, let's go back into the patch notes, and we're gonna talk about Camille first. Now, ever since the changes of the terrain in the top lane, this champion has suffered greatly, which makes sense simply because Camille relies on her E landing for her combo to work or for her to get kill pressure, right? And so what they've tried to do for multiple patches in a row now is kind of make the rest of her kit stronger to compensate with having less opportunities with your E, which makes a lot of sense because that's exactly what Camille needs. So I believe in the previous patch or the patch before that, they have buffed her passive cooldown paired with her Q cooldown, I believe, or Q damage. They buffed something to her Q as well, and this is very good because, of course, the main abilities that she's going to be using are actually her Q, W, and passive, which she has to play around. She can't really utilize her E that well in the lane anymore, simply due to the lack of walls and terrain, right? So what they're doing here, in my opinion, is a very good adjustment, and it buffs what Camille wants to do in the top lane too. Her bonus movement speed when she casts her Q is increased from 40% rather at max ranks to 50%. And movement speed is always a stat that I find hard to judge. Movement speed is one of the most broken stats in the game, but it's also kind of the most invisible stat. One of the greatest example I have of that is that Cloud Dragon, although it doesn't give any extra sustain damage, stats, anything like that, just gives you more movement speed, has been the highest win rate soul for, I believe, the longest time. Cloud Dragon is absolutely broken, and that is because movement speed is an absolutely broken stat, and 10% is a pretty significant increase. Paired with the fact that the cooldown goes down a full second at max ranks, this is going to make Camille a lot more agile, have a lot more opportunities to space around their opponents, have a lot more gap close ability too, because what you have to recognize is once Camille Qs a minion, she's also going to have faster movement speed towards her opponent, allowing her to land her W into an E as well, potentially, right? So I think this change is absolutely amazing and should give her a lot more, I guess, freedom to do what she wants to do in the lane. And that is also paired with her W gaining 1% maximum HP damage in the outer cone. I don't know how much this matters. The thing with Camille, of course, is that she does not upgrade her W until the last ability. But you see here at level 1, instead of 5, it's already 6% as well. So there's a 1% increase completely in the early game, which you would usually get at level 15, right? Usually you would get these stats in your W at level 15, and now you get it at level 2 or 3, depending on when you use his ability, or even at level 1, right? So that is a pretty significant change. Other than that, they have nerfed her hookshot, so instead of it dealing 80 damage flat, it is only going to be dealing 60 damage flat now. And I believe this change is also, of course, also targeted to make the Camille support a little bit less oppressive, because everybody was playing Camille support and they hope that it goes back into the top lane right now. So that is my thoughts on Camille. I think she's in an okay spot. The problem with Camille is not only her terrain being like removed, it's also the meta being very bad for her. Camille can kind of win the matchup in the early game, but after 6 it becomes very hard. Fiora, staple, has been really strong. Darius, very strong. Hard counters Camille. Urgot counters Camille. Volibear is good into Camille. Like, they all out-stat check the Camille, and all you want to do then is, like, as Camille, you want to try and get a sneaky solo kill level 1 to level 5, and then try to skill to your items, right? But now they gave a little bit more power in her kit, which makes a lot of sense, and I'm never the best at judging how strong a champion will be on numbers when I see it in the patch, but I can definitely see this paired with the last buff that they did on Camille to make her a lot more playable in the top lane. So there's that. Fiora, they are taking away 2 base AD from this champion, which in my opinion is extremely justified. Fiora has everything you want in the top lane right now. She has good early game, good scaling, good sustain. She can stat check her opponents because her Q and passive are really hard to deal with from the get-go. She has insane split pushing. All of the items are so good on Fiora. For example, the changes to Ravenous Hydra has been a massive buff to Fiora as well, because she's one of the champions that auto-attack so much, so she really benefits from the lifesteal, right? And I think 2 AD removal, again, I find it hard to judge how much this really changes her matchups. It's only going to be for the early game, right? But this is still the most important part of the laning phase. In my opinion, this nerf is absolutely justified. I don't think it will hurt her much, only in some very close matchups. And after first recall, you probably won't even notice this nerf anymore. There's my take on that. So with Galio, I'm gonna be very honest as well. I'm not sure. I know there was a rank 1 player in EOS who was like a Galio main in the mid lane, so he was doing really well on Galio. And it looks like they have reduced his passive. Oh, they have increased his passive auto attack damage. His W damage reduction is increased and his E damage is increased. So I guess they nerfed him too hard last patch, and now they've given him buffs everywhere, which is interesting to see. I'll be honest, I'm a top laner. I have no in-depth knowledge about Galio or his state right now. I don't see this champion that often either. Usually see him as a counterpick to certain melee mid lane champions such as like the Kiana, to neutralize him and to always have push priority, right? I don't know, he was in such a weak spot, so I guess they are putting him back to a healthy position. And yeah, like I said, I don't see Galio that much, not an important champion for me. Karma, it is interesting for me to see that the W root duration is decreased, which I think is good, but the R plus E AoE shield has been increased, which I think is also good, which like kind of makes her more incentivize, or you incentivize Karma more to use her as a support rather than to have her as a burst mage with her ultimate Q basically one-shotting everything, right? So the root duration has been, well, they said decreased, but they've increased it. The root duration has gone from 1.4 to 1.6. That is a pretty significant increase. It says a decrease here, but hey buddy, that's an increase, you little piggies. But it's okay, that happens, I read it. And the R AoE shield has been increased. Solid. Kayn buff, I mean, it makes sense. I think Blue Kayn was one of the lowest win rate performing champions last patch, and that is because they have removed the interaction of Profane Hydra and Kayn in his Q, I believe. Or there was some interaction that you could do with Profane Hydra, which basically made Kayn a lot stronger and gave him more one-shot opportunities. But with they removed the interaction, and so now they're giving him a compensation buff in his Q, which I think makes sense. I mean, they give him 5% bonus AD buff. I think this matters more in the later stages. Oh, they also say it here, right? Largely due to his synergy with Profane Hydra being heavily nerfed. Yeah. Lux passive damage increased, Q magic damage increased. Do people still play this champion? Lux is getting burps, guys. Let's go. I'm gonna move on from that one. Nami. W magic damage decreased, the healing is increased, and bounce fall off reduced. E magic damage decreased. Guys, do we care? I don't care. Nasus, one of my favorite champions in the top lane. This champion always, of course, is a weird one, simply because you're more so left to the mercy of your opponents if you want to play Nasus. But I think his main issue is also with how bad the meta currently is for him. And so they're buffing him quite significant, honestly, when it looks at it. They are giving him extra percentage based on level in terms of lifesteal, which helps him survive the laning phase a little bit more. Every point of lifesteal, of course, is good, and lifesteal is one of the most expensive stats in League of Legends as well, so that is very good. And then they are increasing his Q with 10 damage. I think it's significant in the sense that he gets a little bit more trade power too. And of course his Q is also the ability that he maxes first, right? And it's 10 extra on every rank, which you will definitely feel. Does this change his weaknesses? Not really, but it gives him a little bit more leniency in the even slash closer matchup, right? Well, it's the same thing, but that's kind of how I see it. Nasus is definitely a champion which I want to make a guide on sometime soon as well. One of my favorite champions in terms of design. I like him a lot, but he's pretty weak in the current meta. That's just always going to be his problem, and you're left to the mercy of your opponent, so that is that. Now, this, in my opinion, is the most interesting change that they are doing. So Olaf top has been S+ tier in my opinion for the recent patches, and that is because Ravenous Hydra is broken on him, Strikebreaker is very good on him, top with the fact that his matchups are pretty good. He has a lot of sustain, he has a lot of damage, he wins 80% of his matchup in the early game, so he has good stat check, good early game, decent scaling, okay split push, okay team fighting. This champion is very, very strong. What are they doing? They are kind of putting him more so jungle catered, or like they're buffing him, but for jungle, and for laning, they are direct nerfs. So take a look into this. They are buffing his monster damage with his Q, okay, but then his W, bonus attack speed duration, is increased for 1 second, which is significant. 1 extra second of attack speed is very significant, especially when you keep in mind that when he auto attacks, his E cooldown is also refunded. So that is one thing. But they have increased the mana cost from 30 to 50, which is a significant increase. His cooldown refund, 1 second per basic attack, is 1 second per basic attack, but it's increased to 2 seconds when hitting monsters. So that's what I was referring to earlier, right? The more attack speed he has, the 1 second per basic attack gets reduced from his E. Now it's 2 seconds with jungle camp, so it's going to make his clear significantly faster. But then lastly, and I think this is the most important, they're putting a flat mana tax on his ultimate. Instead of it costing 0, it's going to cost 100. If you're unfamiliar with Olaf mana cost right now, he is already a pretty mana hungry champion. You will almost every game see Olaf play Olaf with Biscuit. Sometimes in a rare occasion you see them take Resolve Conqueror, but very often you'll see them take Conqueror Inspiration with Biscuits and Approach Velocity, and that is because he is a mana hungry champion. If you want to chug out multiple axes in a row, you need mana in order to do so. His W used to only cost 30 mana, so the only mana that you were really using in your matchup were your Qs. All the mana came from your Q and your W, because your E actually costs health, it does not cost mana, and your R had 0 mana cost. So now, when your mana in your W is increased with 20, and your ultimate is increased with 100, Olaf gets a lot less freedom in his lane to just chug out Qs whenever he wants, because he has to consciously think that he needs to at least preserve 100 mana for his ultimate, and they're also 50 for his W. So this changes his identity in top lane quite significantly, and they've buffed his bonus damage with his Q to jungle, his E to jungle. So yeah, I find that this should nerf him quite significantly in top lane. But maybe the W buff also kind of balances it out. It is hard for me to judge. I think this champion is a powerhouse in the top lane, has been for a long time. And I'm not sure how exactly this will change him, but I can definitely see this being pretty annoying for the average Olaf player, because you have to be way more wary of how you utilize your mana in the laning phase right now. So there's that. To Rek'Sai, they've reduced and the healing reduced at lower levels from his Fury, from hitting minions, wards, and plants. Thank you. This champion got a health potion at level 3 every time he burrowed. This champion was absolutely broken in top lane. Yeah, she was absolutely unmovable. The thing is, if you were laning against Rek'Sai, if you haven't, envision this. You come into lane with 1 health potion, Rek'Sai comes into lane with 20 health potions, or infinite. Maybe infinite is the better word, because what she could do is she burrows, then gets out of the ground, she hits minions, gets 100 Fury in like 3 seconds, and she can burrow instantly again, and while she's burrowed, her Fury gets turned or converted into HP, which would at level 3 already be 120 HP when she was fully Fury, which is very easy to get. It's not hard to get. Well, it wasn't hard to get this Fury, and that meant that she was basically permanently full HP, and if you traded with her, and you took 300 HP off of her, and she took 100 HP off of you, it was worth it for her. So you couldn't really lane against this champion. Thank you that they're nerfing it. That was like the most brain dead thing to ever play against. Okay, Rel, the basic magic resist growth increased. The Q bonus monster damage is removed. Are they just making this a support champion then? Okay, so they removed her bonus damage on camps with her Q, W, and E, so I guess this just changes her back into support only. So now Rel, yeah, so she can't be played in jungle anymore. She's only going to be played in support. Very interesting and a good change, because she was just like a really annoying champion in jungle to deal with, because she's so strong in 2v2 and she barely needs resources to still be a threat every time. and be like an absolutely broken initiator gank setup. Yeah, I like this. I like that she's just a supporter at the jungle. I don't think Rel should be a jungler. The relationship between Riot Games and Senna is weird. It's like worse than your average. Okay, so they're like removing. I honestly don't even know how this works. I don't want to know. I have a like genuine hatred for this champion in general sense. On the new patch, when the season got released, this champion had a 57% win rate in support and AD carry. I hate the champion just because of that, thinking back into it. I don't like this champion. I don't know exactly what this means with their souls. I pretty much believe they are incentivizing Senna to be an AD carry again instead of a support. Wait, so what did they say? Fewer souls dropped from allied supports, items killing minions, more souls dropped from Senna killing. Yeah, so you want to be an AD carry probably again. I don't know. Riot has no idea how they want to identify Senna. Support, AD carry. I don't know. Sometime soon might become a tank. I don't know. There's that. Smolder. Base armor increased. Q bonus damage on crit chance increased. Alright, so they've nerfed this champion last patch on everything. Q, W, E, and ult, I believe. Maybe even the passive too, which was justified. This champion is just like K'Sante. It's all in the numbers. It's either completely useless or completely overtuned. I don't like playing against Smolder. I remember when she was so broken last patch that one time she was full build, she Q'd a minion and one of the outer balls hit me and dealt 1000 true damage into me over 4 ticks. So 250, 250, 250, 250 true damage. I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, remove this champion. Such a disgusting kid. Has been the highest pentakill win rate in professional play due to the nature of his kid being an execute, right? And that even you don't have to deal with damage, your teammates deal it. But I think they've changed that a little bit too. My knowledge on Smolder is pretty limited. They're giving it some buffs, sure. I don't really have more thoughts on that. Sona, okay, so they're nerfing her damage and giving her more utility. That is it. That is Sona. Volibear, that's actually interesting. So they're nerfing his R cooldown, and that, in my opinion, is very good. Simply because that's going to give you more opportunity to try and punish his champion. Most abilities in the game, ultimate abilities, I believe, are 120 seconds cooldown, and now this being 160 definitely gives you more opportunity to try and abuse Volibear. It makes him weaker in a lot of scenarios, and he has to be way more mindful with how he uses his ultimate. And that's also going to make him less strong in a lane like top lane, because let's say I play Riven into Volibear, which is a good matchup for Volibear. If we trade ultimates, once we have done that, I'm gonna have my ultimate back like 40 seconds faster, which makes the lane a lot harder for Volibear to try and approach, right? Because he's not gonna have his ultimate. So this ultimate nerf, although it seems pretty insignificant, it is very massive, and I really like the change they've done to this. It's kind of like the reverse of what they've done to Gragas. They've buffed the Gragas ult with like flat 20 seconds. That was surreal that they did that, but this is really good to see, so very nice. Q monster damage increase on Silas. I don't even know what these items do. Support items, more work on that. This is mad. Like I like support items, bro. They keep changing the support items every patch. Like I'm not even gonna read into that. I've lost track of what they do. I'm going to be super honest. I've absolutely lost track of what they do. But the interesting here, in my opinion, is Static Shift. I think this item is already pretty weak because... Okay, okay, I see why they're nerfing it. They're nerfing it because AD carries have a great late game item awaiting them with the buffs to the Infinity Edge that they've done, right? So they've increased the cost of this item. So not every AD carry can get and build this, have full wave clear, and be able to scale into their Infinity Edge. I think that is their thought process. A 200 gold increase is massive though. Yeah, that's like an extra kill almost that you need to have in order to finish this item, which is going to make it less approachable. I think this item deals like the transition from this item into like the mid game. It feels like your opponent has this item, they do like 0 damage, especially if they're behind. And now I think this item is only going to be good when enemies are ahead, so they can keep snowballing. So I think this is fine. There's a few changes that I want to talk about though. I don't care about iron balance changes. Or the quick play updates, but one thing that I find very important to talk about is they fixed an issue that caused Sundered Sky to not crit after canceling the previous auto attack. Bless. So basically, if you guys didn't know, when I was playing Riven, my Sundered Sky, after canceling auto attacks or even using abilities before that, would very often not proc. And now they've made it so 100% of the time your Sundered Sky is going to proc again, which is absolutely amazing. I've read through most of these. I think none of these are really important or worth mentioning. And guys, upcoming skins. Okay, honestly, Choo Ornn is an amazing skin though. Like, these skins are high-key goated, but I really don't care. So yeah, how would I summarize the patch note? I really like what they've done. My biggest question mark is going to be Olaf. See how he does in top lane now. I think Camille is going to have a better time in top lane. The nerfs to Fiora, Rek'Sai, and Volibear are absolutely justified and good to see. That's pretty much it. Those are my insights on the patch notes, and let's move on to the tier list next. All right. Rank Cho'Gath first, please. I have class in 5 minutes. Alright, bro. You should Cho'Gath. I think Cho'Gath tends to do better in the lower MMRs because people have no idea how to approach his sustain. I put him in C or B tier though. I don't think he's that strong. And that is because the champion, you know, he used to be a good champion like, I don't know, 5-6 seasons ago. But there's so much mobility in the game now, and out of any tanks that you can pick, the only benefit you have playing Cho'Gath is that your champion has a very solid lane due to his passive. People don't know how to play against it. I don't think this champion is that strong. I wouldn't expect this champion to have a decent win rate around goal. Like, the lower Illaoi you go, the better the champion probably performs, because it's like stat check, right? Because of the stats your passive grants you. But the higher Illaoi you get, the champion just gets worse and worse. So I think I'll put him in C tier because of that. Aatrox, solid A tier. The problem with Aatrox though is he probably doesn't perform that well in lower elos. I mean, let's put a tier list here too. And I just have it for reference. I mean, let's check Cho'Gath. What? How's it D tier with this win rate? Like, oh, okay. I kind of expected it to at least be B tier. The thing with Aatrox, this champion is susceptibly? How do you call it? Susceptible, that's the word. This champion is susceptible hard, and that is because there is a very high skill ceiling in this champion. And even the stepping stone is not that easy. So I guess it's C tier. The items on this champion are amazing. Eclipse is good on him. Profane Hydra is good on him. Sunlit Sky is good on him. Sojin is good on him. He has really good items. How most Aatrox laning phases go is you like lose level 1 to level 4, and then level 5, and especially after first recall, you start winning every lane. But the downside of this champion is your weak early game, which is probably why it also doesn't perform that well in lower MMRs. Not susceptible was the word. Kali, I don't think this is a staple top laner. I think this is a counterpick top laner. Melee champions, such as Jax, Riven, it's okay into Camille, Fiora, and that is because this champion lacks a lot of things in top laner. It's pretty bad at split pushing, it's pretty bad at farming camps. You kind of just want to utilize you're a really strong laner if counterpicked. And your job is to just create skirmishes, right, and assassinate people. That's what Akali wants to do. And like I said, her downside really is... I will always say in low MMRs, we're gonna figure that out too, right? The champions that I think tend to do best is champions that have like a few things. They have scaling, sustain, stat check, something like this. It's hard for me to put myself in the position of a low MMR player sometimes in terms of ranking these champions, because I would expect Akali to do somewhat better. I didn't expect to be this low. Akshan I put in D tier by default. I don't think this champion is ever going to have a high win rate in low MMR. The nice thing that it has is scaling, and it has some stat check, but this champion's fallback patterns is really low, and the amount of skill you need to consistently perform in this champion is very high. You're very susceptible to ganks. Oh, that's the word again. And I don't think this is a good champion to main. I wouldn't recommend any lower MMR players to be an Akshan main. I mean, maybe it performs C tier level, like similar to Aatrox, but I don't think the champion ever gets a high win rate. Okay, I'll explain you what stat check means in my reference, okay? When I say stat check, that is because a certain champion has either like a passive... Basically, he gets stats or something extra that most champions in the game cannot match. So when we're talking about Cho'Gath, his stat check potential is his passive that gives him infinite healing, and so much healing is super hard to get in the early game for other champions, right? That is why Cho'Gath can stat check with his passive. Why is Darius a stat check champion? That is because Darius, his passive, grants him 30 AD level 1 when procced. 30 AD is equivalent to 1k gold. That is stat checks, right? Those are stats that nobody else can get. If you're talking about Trundle, for example, Trundle lowers your damage plus gains more damage when he Qs you. So his, like, and then the attack speed he has with lethal tempo is also stat check. Olaf, his passive, the lower HP he gets more attack speed. Also stat check. Therefore, certain champions can stat check better. Camille, I mean, she got buffed twice. And you know that Camille, she has some things. She has scaling, insane scaling, one of the best scaling champions in the game. In fact, she's one of the best champions in the game with gold as well. If Camille is fed, it's really hard to play against this champion. But after the changes of walls, this champion has struggled in top lane, like, for a long time now, right? She's gotten 2 buffs, and the buffs were targeted towards her passive, her Q, movement speed, her passive shield cooldown, I think, and now also her W damage. Maybe she goes into B tier, but I think this champion is a low win rate, and that is because the stepping stone, or the skill you need to consistently play with Camille, is actually pretty hard, because this champion relies on spacing and good cooldown management with your W and your passive. So I expect the champion to have a low win rate. Darius, now this champion has everything you would want in a lower MMR champion. I think Darius is one of the best champions to play in lower MMR. You have the stat check potential in the early game. Your scaling is decent. You can split push. You have decent team fighting as well. Kind of everything you would want in a lower MMR top laner. Plus, it is not super hard to play Darius at an average level. If you want to play Darius in a super high level, you need to be really good at spacing because your champion has no mobility, right? But other than that, he kind of has everything you would want in a champion. And so I think he's really, really good. Mundo is one of my favorite champions to play. And the downside of Mundo is that he is a little bit conditional in the sense that you hope that enemies don't have champions that can build Blade Rune King or have abilities that deal percentage health damage. If enemies do not have Blade Rune King, this champion is one of the best, like, he is a conditional pick, right? Kind of. Because he only builds health. That is also what transitions to his AD. So I only use Mundo as a counter pick when I pick him in high elo, but in low MMRs, this champion can work consistently. First things first, you have insane scaling. Mundo is probably the best scaling tank because you're gonna have 6k HP with a lot of resistances and full AD. Mundo is super strong, can split push, can team fight, has insane scaling, no stat check in the early game though. So early game is super weak. You just gotta learn to get through the early game. But the benefit that you have playing Mundo in low MMRs is that people have no idea how to shut you down in the early game. And since that is the case, you're going to be allowed to skill, so I expect this champion to do pretty well. Okay, my bad. I didn't expect him to do that well. What the f... Wait, he has higher win rate than Garen even. Is Mundo that broken in lower MMRs? Okay, it's time to make a Mundo guide. It's one of my favorite champions. And yeah, the reason why Mundo probably does so well is this champion is one of the weakest early game champions, right? Mundo really is one of the weakest. Like, if you think about weak early game top lane champions, some champions that come to mind is like Irelia, Akali, but Mundo is one of them as well. But I think people just don't know how to play against him, and that's why he just gets to skill. And once he gets to his items, you become a monster, guaranteed. Maybe it's time for Dr.Mundo unranked to master. Maybe it really is. Especially when people play him so much in the lower MMRs. Fiora, I would put B or A tier. Probably A tier because she has insane scaling and insane split push, so you have late game insurance. Plus, like this champion, even this is the thing with Fiora. Fiora has, with Gangplank, the highest skill ceiling out of any top lane champion. I would say that Fiora, to play her optimally, is even harder than Riven. So Fiora is really, really, really good, but she still has a pretty hard stepping stone. Like, you still need a good baseline of Fiora games in order to get decent at this champion. And so I think with the recent nerfs, she is probably not that good for the low MMR. So I put it in A tier. I want to see where she's actually at. I don't think she's B tier. I think she's A tier. In my mind, she's A tier. The reason she's probably B tier is because the mechanical depth of this champion, but the scaling and the split push potential this champion has, I think is still really, really good. So I'm going to keep it on A tier. Right, Gangplank I'll put in C tier or even B tier. And that is because Gangplank has two things. I just mentioned that Fiora has one of the highest... Oh, by the way, thanks for your tier 1. Maybe I said that already. So the thing is with Gangplank is that he has one of the highest stepping stones in terms of picking up this champion. And also, he has one of the hardest skill ceilings in terms of how your teamfight execution. And the way I usually compare this, right, is that there's quite a lot of Riven players that are like similar in skill, right? But there's almost nobody that is similar in skill level to Solar Baka playing Gangplank. This champion has an insane skill ceiling, and he's super hard to lane with as well, because you're a champion that has no mobility, and you're very susceptible to any gank. You have quite a lot of counter matchups. The benefit you have as Gangplank is that you're the highest gold income champion in top lane. That is what you want to do. So what I've showcased you guys as well is the way you want to play Gangplank is actually trade avoidant. You don't want to be trading in lane. But that makes it pretty hard for lower MMRs to do. So I expect the champion to have a very low win rate. Yeah, that's what I expect. Garen, S+. I mean, does he need introduction? Everything you want in a lower MMR champion. Even though he's not the best at stat checking in the early game, you can trade in the early game, especially with auto Q. Good scaling, one of the best sustained champions in the game, so you're allowed to make mistakes. Good split push, can team fight, everything you want in a lower MMR champion. Plus, you can play 10 Garen games, and you can play the champion to 70% of his potential. All you need to know is when to press W, honestly. That's the only skill ceiling, and how to proc face rush, and of course, macro. The champion is my go-to for any lower MMR player. I also have YouTube videos. I have an unranked to master on Garen, I have to climb, and I have how to climb out of lower MMR and Garen. Highly, highly recommend people, if they want to climb out of lower MMR, to play Garen. The best champion. But maybe Mundo is a close match right now. Gnar, I would put in C tier. Jack of all trades, master of none. That's always my summary to Gnar. Has decent split push, but not good. Decent laning, but not good. Decent team fight, decent disengage, decent engage, but nothing he excels at. I expect the champions to be kind of... Well, there he is. Okay, solid. Nothing else to be said. Gragushka, I think, is B tier. That is because... I mean, actually... He is very, you know what the actually maybe the champ is D tier. So I think Gragas top is really strong right now. They also buffed this, his ult cooldown is super low, and this champion is extremely oppressive to deal with. But two things. He is skill intensive because all his abilities are skill shots, besides his W, I guess. And he has very weak early game. Having a strong early game is super important for top laners, especially in lower MMRs. You do not get priority in 90% of your matchup as Gragas. He does not have good split push, not good scaling. Well, he has okay scaling, but not good early game either. I expect the champion to actually perform really bad. B tier. Okay, I was good with my first guess. Well, okay. I think I put him in C tier. I don't think he's B tier. I put him in C tier. Gwen. Gwen is a solid B, maybe A, but the reason I put her in B is because, okay, so the downside of Gwen first. This champion is pretty reliant on you having good spacing, but that's all she relies on as well. Her kit is very simplistic, and your W timing is the most important. One thing a lot of Gwen players don't know is your W gives you flat resistances. So when you press W, you basically have like 2 extra cloth armors in your inventory or some magic resist. So important to know that about Gwen. Second thing is this champion so hard if you're able to go Nash's Tooth first. If you go like Nash's Tooth and you spike on Gwen, insane 1v1 potential, insane scaling, insane split push, insane team fighting. She's everything you want. The downside of Gwen is that almost every matchup is a counter pick. She gets counter picked by like 70% of champions in the top lane. And again, this is why she excels in the lower MMRs, is what you have to always keep in mind is in lower MMRs, a theoretical counter matchup is very often not going to be a matchup in, or a counter matchup in execution, and that is because people don't have the insights on how to make a X matchup actually play out as a counter matchup. And that allows Gwen to get through a lot of hard laning phases, allowing her to skill. But she is still reliant on skill. My own little brother, right, he started playing League of Legends. He's Diamond Illaoi right now. He's just a Gwen one trick. He never really played rank before, but he's able to reach Diamond just one trick in Gwen. C tier? Nah, I'm putting her in B tier. B tier is safe. And that is because she does require skill. Illaoi, A tier. She was S tier, but I think she got nerfed. Maybe she's still S tier. She's either S tier or A tier. So what does she have? She has pretty weak early game, but after first recall, she becomes a menace. Good stat check, good scaling, good split push. Kinda iffy team fight, but the split push and scaling potential is really disgusting. And I know that so often people come into my chat and it's like, what do I do against Hullbreaker, Illaoi? Just spur my split pushing. Yeah, it's kind of hard right now. S plus? 51%. I don't think it's S plus. Irelia, C tier probably. No, this champion is really skill incent. Like, you have to be skillful playing Irelia. There's a lot of counter matchups. Now you can argue, of course, counter matchups are not that prevalent in the lower MMRs, but you still need to be very skilled to pull off Irelia in terms of split pushing, in terms of team fighting. She relies on very smart plays, and even if you get ahead out of lane after Irelia, I feel like this champion is still pretty hard. That's it. Jaximus, B tier? I think Jax has kind of fallen off. He's not that easy to play anymore with the removal of Sundered Sky. No, not Sundered Sky. Divine Thunder. Divine Thunder was his old go-to item, right? Right now, you can go try for Sundered Sky. You're still very strong, but one downside that Jax has is he's no sustain and like kind of hard to control with mana. And even though Jax can do everything as a top laner, kind of like the most all-rounded top laner. He has good early game, good mid laning, and good late game. He only sucks a little bit in the mid game, in my opinion, from like his transition to like first, second item, like 3-4 items. He has really good team fighting, good split pushing, good scaling, but he is like kind of hard to manage in terms of resources. I expect this champion to be around B tier in terms of win rate. D tier, but has this win rate? Nah, I put him in B tier. Piss off with D tier. Jayce, D tier though. This champion is going to go into D tier. It is simply same reasonings as Gangplank. You need 200 Jayce games to get decent at this champions. You have no mobility. You have, I mean, you have some with movement speed, right? But that's it. You have no dashes. Insane high skill ceiling and skill floor. Like, so much of this champions also is in terms of setup. You need to know what runes to take in what matchup. Like, you need Phase Rush or Conqueror. Itemization is important in this champion. Cooldown management. There's so many things to focus on before you can start playing about the core concepts in the game. K'Sante, probably C tier. It's a tank. I don't like telling people to play tanks in solo queue. He's the most versatile tank, but also probably one of the hardest tanks to play mechanically, because he is still a mechanical champion. Has a lot of timers and a lot of stuff like this. That's it. I don't think this champion performs well. I mean, I know this champion has historically always performed extremely poor in lower MMRs. Even when K'Sante was like the most broken on release, this champion still had like negative win rate in lower MMRs, which is why Riot struggled balancing this champion. It was like meta and competitive for like a year. But this champion has always performed so shit in lower MMRs. Wow, 45% though. Imagine looking at the champion and knowing you have 10% less chance to win the game compared to your opponents. Holy moly, that champion's shit in lower awards. Kayle I'll probably put in B tier or even A tier. And why do you guys think I put Kayle so high? Kayle is one of the best scaling champions in the game. Because you're not going to get abused by people knowing how to play your matchups. You're going to be allowed to scale. Scale. So probably even A tier.
Hello guys, I'm Illaoi. Today we are gonna do coaching.
Man, some of these champions do catch me off guard though. This is so surprising. This win rate is really good, by the way. This is a really good win rate for Kayle. I'm gonna keep it to A tier, and that is because you're still kind of... I don't think they're as good as these ones. I think these ones are a tier above Kayle, so I'm gonna put her in A tier. The way I always have to make up the tier list is like, I gotta compare every champion to the S tier champions, right? But yeah, the best thing about Kayle and lower MMR's games is that you're going to be allowed to scale, so Kayle is going to be very good. Kennen, probably D tier. I think the champion isn't even that good at high elo right now. Kennen is very reliant on being good in the meta. To be like a solid blind pick. I feel like he just doesn't have the best items right now. He is not that strong in general. I don't know. He has a pretty high skill floor too. Like, I wouldn't be able to play Kennen well after a few games. Like, you need quite a lot of games in the champion. I think it's super hard to play. Why is it B tier with this win rate? Oh, the champion sucks. Kled. This champion is good. This champion should be A tier at least. That is because Kled has everything you want kind of for a lower MMR champion. You know, so many people, even master players, don't know how Kled works, like his kit. You know, I coached a master player last year, and he did not know how the Kled W interacts. People don't know that it's a cooldown that he cannot control. So if you guys don't know, and don't be ashamed if you don't, the way Kled W works is it's a cooldown that he cannot control. So the cooldown goes automatically, and once it's off cooldown, the first auto attack he casts on anything, be the minion, be the champion, his W goes. He cannot control, similar to like Poppy passive. If you don't know how to play around his W, then Kled can feel like the most oppressive champion, but all you gotta do is let him waste his W on a last hit, and then you can trade with him, right? Or you consciously trade into his W so you know he doesn't get it during his passive when he gets off of his horse. It's kind of dependent on the way you're gonna approach it, right? But because a lot of people don't know how to play against Kled, this champion rises. Good early game, actually good scaling now with items like Eclipse. Titanic Hydra really good on him. I think Sun Sky is probably okay as well. I think the champion has good items, Aatrox, Titanic Hydra, Eclipse, Pro Sun Sky too. So yeah, pretty strong champion. I expect him to do well. Oh no, he's here. Yeah, solid. Malphite, I mean, champion probably B tier. You can be 1 on 10 on Malphite and still be useful, but you're playing a tank, you're gonna be reliant on your team to carry you. You're good early game, decent mid to late, but you can split push and you can only team fight. It's a tank in solo queue, I'm not a fan of it. I expect the champion to do... How? Why? When? And some of these champions are head scratchers. Really surprising too. He does counter a lot of champions in the A and S tier though. Like Malphite is decent into Malphite. He's decent. He loses to Darius and to Mundo and Garen though. Like these champions is outskilled, but he can actually stat check Garen like until Garen gets too many items. He wins into Fiora. He loses into Illaoi. Into Kayle it's like winning for Malphite too. Into Kled it's like even, I guess. I guess Malphite is pretty good into the current meta if these champions are blind picked. Now what counters Malphite? Actually, Malphite gets countered by every tank in the game almost. Like my go-to counter pick into Malphite is Sion. Mundo is really good into Malphite as well. Cho'Gath is really good into Malphite as well. Gragas is really good into Malphite as well. Zac is really good into Malphite too. There's that. I guess Malphite is just really good. Mordekaiser. This is probably my go-to S tier champion for AP champions in the lower MMR. The reason why you don't see Mordekaiser in higher MMR is because he is very susceptible to ganks. And you cannot blind pick Mordekaiser. If you get counterpicked by, like, if enemy picks like Olaf, I don't know, Fiora, some other champions too, like, you're just not that good of a champion, and you'll very often feel useless. But in lower MMRs, he's a perfect stat check champion, has his passive too, good items, good scaling, good split push, good team fight, everything you want in a champion. I also have a how to climb out of lower MMR on Mordekaiser. Recommend to check it out if you haven't. If you want to learn how to play him, I expect this. Oh, he's right there. Yeah. Nasus. I mean, he's getting buffed. I put Nasus in B tier. I mean, probably not A tier. Compared to Kayle, he has a weaker laning phase and he comes online later. He's getting buffed though. His Q damage is getting buffed and his passive sustain lifesteal is getting buffed. Again, Nasus, the way Nasus plays is you're not reliant on your own play, you're reliant on the knowledge of your opponent, and like, you're literally a dog, bro. They give you the scraps. If they allow you to farm, you're allowed to farm. If they don't allow you to farm, you're not allowed to farm. One of the things that Nasus does have is scaling, right? And good split push, decent team fight later on too. One of my favorite champions to play in terms of like design. I think he's such a simple but cool design. B tier is probably safe for him. It doesn't surprise me because he's allowed to skill. I'm gonna put him in B tier though, especially against these champions. I think his B tier is safe. But maybe he gets better because of the buffs. Olaf. Okay, so Olaf has been S+ tier, but look at these nerfs. These nerfs are massive. And I just saw this, and I think this is going to absolutely change how Olaf gets played. read these nerfs, right? So his bonus attack speed, duration of his W, is gonna go up, but his mana of his W cost is 20 mana up as well. And I was already like, that's pretty hefty. But here, and this is the biggest thing, his ultimate is going to cost 100 mana now. That difference is so crazy. So crazy. This champion is gonna have a lot of mana issues in lane. And if you ever force Olaf to like throw, like he is not allowed to throw axes on repeat anymore in a trade, because he has to think so much more about this mana now. And in the past, Olaf on low mana was still very like scary, because his ultimate is 0 mana cost and his E is 0 mana cost. It costs health. His E cost health and his ultimate was just 0 mana. But now that he needs 100 mana to be able to cast ult, completely changes, genuinely completely changes the identity of this champion in top lane. And this is going to make him so much harder to play in top lane. So this champion has been S+ tier for a while, but I think this champion goes all the way to B tier. I don't think you can understand how big this is, that his every combo costs like 120 mana. And I've had so many times where Olaf is like low mana, low HP, but it just has ult and W always, because he knows it's 0 costs. But right now, I think this Ornn might even just put the champion to not be played top lane at all anymore, but Olaf only is gonna get played in jungle. So it's really good for Olaf jungle, yeah. But this champion, I don't think we're gonna see him top lane anymore. These nerfs are massive. Absolutely massive. Ornn is a tank. It's a staple tank. Probably one of the most stable tanks that you can play in terms of laning phase. Like, he's such a solid blind pick, but you're playing a tank in solo queue. That's it. A tier. I put him in B tier. Problem? Poppy? That champion for me goes in A tier though, because he counters almost every champion. I mean, he doesn't really. He loses to all these champions really hard. He loses to all the S tier champions. Actually, maybe the champion's B tier too. Same reasons, you're playing a tank. Actually loses to all the champions, yeah. Probably not that good too. Pantheon? Probably A tier. What's the downside of Pantheon? I think the downside of Pantheon is his mid-game, actually. He is really good in the early game. Really, really good. And since the check potential, you win a lot of your matchups, can get priority all the time. That's good. His downside is his transition from like 1 items to 2 to 3 items. This weekend, I made a how to climb out of lower MMR with Pantheon, so that's the 3rd champion I've done. I got one for Mordekaiser, I got one for Garen, I got one for Pantheon, and I've got one for Renekton. We're gonna get to Renekton later. Pantheon is really good early, but then his transition from like 1st item to 2 to 3 is pretty hard. But at like 3, 4 items, 5 items, you are a monster that one-shots everybody. So it's kind of weird how this champion works. You kind of fall off mid-game, but then you skill super hard again. The downside of Pantheon is, yes, like you say as well, if you fall behind, you are screwed on the champion. Not that many fallback patterns, so actually maybe it's B tier. Yeah, probably B tier actually. His pick rate is lower than I anticipated. Quinn, range top lane. To play Quinn top, and the thing is, even though we all hate range top laners, right? We all hate playing against it. The skill seal or the skill floor of playing range tops is still pretty hard because there is no fallback patterns. If you fall behind as a range top laner, you are going to struggle and you're going to feel absolutely useless. So even though I hate range top laners, they still need to be smart about the game. And they still need to play their trade patterns and their matchups good. If you play Fleet with Quinn, you're a pig, but it also gonna make it stronger. I think B tier is probably safe to put her. Rek'Sai is getting hard nerfed, probably still A tier. Why is Rek'Sai so broken in top lane? I mean, she's getting multiple nerfs, so maybe this champion is removed again. But if she's still somewhat strong, I can't. The problem with Rek'Sai is at level 3, unironically at level 3, if she goes into her tunnel form, she heals for 120 HP. That's a full health potion at level 3, and it's like a 4-second cooldown. Well, there's that. Renekton, I think is A tier right now. Downside of Renekton, pretty bad scaling, but it's okay-ish right now. The build path of Renekton is really good. His items are really good. You can go like Eclipse Cleaver or Eclipse Sterax, and then you get access to all the other items like Sojin, Sunlit Sky, Jack Shows, even Profaned Hydra some games. I think the champion is in a good position. My go-to 2 champions for the last season were always to recommend Garen and Renekton to low or MMR players. Renekton has kind of everything. You can play aggressive, you have the Ted check, you have the sustain, decent split pushing, decent team fighting. So I think Renekton is pretty good. He's S tier. I think A tier is safe though. He loses kind of against all the champions. Rengar, I mean, Rengar has been a high... So Rengar is always going to be my go-to niche top lane champion to recommend for people that want to play a top lane champion that is strong but is a niche top laner. Rengar fills that gap pretty much. He's really oppressive in laning phase, has insane scaling, insane pick potential, but not and split push potential. He takes third like one of the fastest, but you do need to kill your opponent before you can split push. I'm not sure how well he does in lower MMR though, because he is skill intensive, so maybe he's B tier. Riven, you guys might complain, but Riven is D tier in lower MMRs, unfortunately. She can be really good, okay? Like, she can be A tier. But I'll tell you why I think she's D tier, or maybe C tier. And that is because his skill floor and Riven Z tier, yeah, your mom too. The thing is, the problem with Riven is that her skill floor and her skill ceiling are really high, paired with the fact that you have no sustain in top lane, which is really hard. You have no fallback patterns. You don't want to be behind in the curve. You need, like, even going, like, very often even being even is not good for your champion. I'll always handcapping right now. He just needs to... Okay, let's search it. Let's search it. Let's search it. Oh! Oh, what if statistics back up my take? Now what? What are you gonna say now? Just build Aatrox if you want sustain. See, the thing is, guys, if you take the time investment to learn Riven in lower MMRs, I think this can be one of the best champions to play, right? I am a firm believer, like, I climbed out of lower MMR also being a Riven one-trick eventually, right? I think Riven is one of the best carry champions in the game. But, and this issue remains, yeah, this champion is just one of the worst champions to play in lower MMR because you need like 200 games before you get decent. If we compare it to these 4 champions, you can play 10 games of each of these champions and you would be better than playing 100 games on Riven, probably. You would perform better. I think Riven is a very strong champion. It's one of the best carry champions, but you need time investment before you get decent on this champion. The thing is, people also overcomplicate Riven. They think it's all about combos, like combos that make her hard. It's actually not combos that make her the hardest. It's the, you can kind of call it combos too. It's more so the order in which you use your ability that kind of is the skill ceiling on Riven. So you need a lot of knowledge and you need a lot of experience before you're able to start playing different matchups. For example, your E usage as Riven in so many matchups is different. In Garen, you want to use it at the start. Into Darius, you can never use it, right? So it's so hard to learn Riven. You need experience. You need to learn your matchups before you can really start playing Riven consistently. That's the hard part about being a Riven main. You need a lot of knowledge and a lot of games before you get half decent. Rumble, probably B tier, maybe, probably B tier. Super strong early, really good items. Got nerfs a lot of the times though. Stat checks a lot of champions, but no good scaling, no good split pushing. So probably not that good in that regard. So I expect the champion to could have been C tier. Nobody likes this. I wouldn't recommend playing Rumble. If you play Rumble, you're a pig. Sett is good in lower MMRs, probably A tier. Good stat check, good sustain, good split push, decent scaling. Because there's this build right now where you go Heartsteel, Brave Rune, King Titanic, Hydra or something on the champion. It's actually very, very strong. I want to make a unranked or how to climb out of lower MMR with Sett soon too. So I think the champion actually does decent. Yeah. Ooh, even this high. Alright, it's time to make a Sett guide. I want to do a Sett guide and a Mundo guide for sure. Those are the next ones, 100%. But yeah, you do need spacing on Sett, but he's still kind of easy to play. Like, he is, like, yes, his skill ceiling is actually pretty high, susceptively high. But susceptive is my new word, bro. It's the new word for today. Shen, not a fan. B tier, C tier. You're a tank. You're aligned or your team to carry you. Please don't play Shen when you're trying to climb out of low MMR because you're learning how to get carried instead of learning how to carry. You can split push, you have no AoE, your goal is to teamfight, but there's so much chaos in the game. The games are gonna last super long. Please don't play Shen for your own mental sake. Sion, C tier. Why? Because he loses 80% of his matchups, can't get priority, skills well, can split push, can teamfight, but yeah, he loses almost every matchup. All these champions destroy Sion. All these 4. This guy's destroy Sion, this guy destroy Sion, outskill Sion, destroy Sion. Actually gets destroyed by Sion. Destroy Sion, destroy Sion. Actually, maybe the champion is D tier. The champion is probably D tier. Maybe he actually get, like, the thing is with Sion is he probably gets through laning phases in lanes where he shouldn't, and that's why this champion can become strong. Tahm Coco launch. B or A tier. Stat check, has sustain. It's one of the 2 top laners that have no wave clear. Shen and Tahm Kench are like the only 2 top laners that have 0 wave clear in terms of their kit. So that's what I dislike about Tahm Kench. But he has good stat check, really good sustain, probably wins a lot of lanes, and people don't know how to approach this champion. People don't understand that you should not trade against Tahm Kench unless you can stand behind your waves and then just look to outskill him because the champion cannot farm. I mean, probably B tier. B tier would be my guess. What the hell? What? Okay, I guess he's A tier. That's such a high win rate. Teemo. Piggy range top laner, probably B tier. That is because Teemo actually has insane scaling, especially around neutral objectives with his shrooms. Really good lane, wins 80% of his lanes, can get prio almost any time, is super annoying to lane against, just susceptible to ganks, but you have decent fallback patterns, so you can always have value. Where is Singh? Probably B tier, maybe A tier. Singed, I know Singed is a good low elo champion because you're not gonna get punished. I remember when I was a low elo player, not condescending by the way, when I was a low player, I hated playing against Singed. I had no idea how to play against this champion. I got stumped by him so many times. Maybe it's A tier because he's just like a stat check champion. He's so annoying to deal with. He can proxy. You need to learn how to play against his playstyle, and like he's good at team fighting. Really, really good at team fighting. Not that good at split pushing though. So maybe B tier, but I expect the champion to... Yeah, okay, no, A tier was correct. And Teemo, I put in B tier, but the reason is... Trundle, S tier. S plus tier, actually. Like, Trundle, you see here, it's the same thing with all of these champions. You can play 10 Trundle games, you're gonna be decent at him. Like, he does not have a skill ceiling. Or high skill ceiling. He has insane stat check potential, insane scaling, insane split pushing. Like, this is everything you want in a low MMR champion. This has to be, like, one of the highest win rate. Yeah, not a surprise. Trundle's one of the best, for sure. Tryndamere kind of is everything you would want, but I know this champion statistically performs actually very poorly in lower MMRs, which is what I know by my latest tiers. I expect this champion to be A tier, but he is performing pretty weak, and that is because Tryndamere, his skill ceiling, although it sounds weird, because he's just right-click and sustain, like he has good stat check, good sustain, good split push, good scaling, but his problem is that his skill ceiling is understanding your all-in windows very, very well. And if you don't use your all-in windows as snowball, this champion is pretty weak to play. And that's why I think he's actually C tier, which is very weird. Look, this champion statistically performs really, really poorly in lower MMRs, which is very weird. So yeah, he's a C tier champion. I expected this champion to be A tier. Last time I remember, this was the champion that surprised me the most. U tier, B tier. Actually, no. This is B tier in high MMR, but actually it's Z tier. People don't know how to play him. He actually has a skill ceiling. It's all cooldown management and order of abilities. I think this champion performs really well. I mean, no, this champion is D tier for sure. Nothing else. Urgot though, Urgot in my opinion is S tier, especially when you play with Fleet. So when you go Fleet, you have sustain, you have stat check, you have scaling, you have good team fight, good split push, everything you wanted to the top laner, easy to play kit. You see the reference with all these S tier champions, right? Very easy. Where's Urgot? Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah. I gotta make a video on Urgot, on Mundo. I gotta write this down. Vayne, yeah, I mean, Vayne is like A tier. Vayne actually beats all the S tier champions. Vayne is like the kryptonite to the current low elo meta. The benefit you're gonna have playing against the Vayne top players is that they're all legit pigs and they have no brain and they all think about kill mentality, and like if they die once you can outskill them. But she shits on all of these champions. That's probably why she's actually S tier. No, she has to be S tier when she shits on all these champions. But guys, between us, okay? Who plays Vayne top? Just raise your hand. Me. Alright, welcome first time chatters. That is 10 minutes for Sampai was taken. That is 10 minutes for oh, there's too many. I play Vayne top when I've had a bad day, so someone else has a worse day. Volibear. He's getting nerfed, but he's a good stat check champion. Probably A tier. Good stat check, good sustain. He was S tier, who was absolutely broken, but he got multiple nerfs. I mean, actually, how does he perform? B tier? Nah, you're lying. He's A tier. But Volibear's win rate is like surprisingly low, but still put him A tier. But he got nerfed a few times, right? Warwickus, he kind of does everything in these champions do, so he's probably S tier. But the problem, it's harder to pull him off and he has less scaling. Work is really good in lane and to his first item, but after this first item, he actually falls off pretty hard. And like you have bad wave clear, bad split push potential, bad you're pretty bad at like farming jungle camps and pushing sideways unless you go Titanic Hydra. Even though Work is like really obnoxious and hard to deal with, he doesn't have the same like wave clear that these champions do and like the same easy to play. Like even though Work is a very simplistic kit, like these champions are still way easier. So I think he doesn't do that well. Oh, there you go. Very accurate. There you go. Hey. That's why no, I've had so many champions wrong. Shut up, Alois. Wukongos. See, this champion, I'm a bit advocate of hating on Wukong top, but I think he's actually gotten quite a few buffs. So why do I hate Wukong top? Well, the thing is, you get countered by almost every AP champion, but he's gotten quite a lot of buffs now. Changed to his passive, Q range, I think Q damage as well. So like he's actually pretty strong now. He just has 0 sustain. I just see Wukong as a weaker Riven. Does that make sense? Wukong does everything Riven does, but weaker. But I think he actually performs probably pretty well because he's an easier kit. Holy shit, he performs good. Okay, my bad, guys. Hey, I wasn't familiar with this game. Yasuo, D tier, nothing else to be said. If you play Yasuo top, few things first. Oh, few things. I'll say a few things about him. You're playing top lane, first things first, you're a masochist. Then you play Yasuo top, that's it. Don't do it. Yone, got to be B tier. Problem with Yone though is that he is super easy to play in lane, but he is very hard to play out of lane. And I say that because I did my own on Rank 2 Masters. I win every lane with this champion, and then out of lane I look like a chicken without a head. Because your kit is still conditional because you need to get your Q3. If you are going into a river without Flash's Yone, it is pretty hard to play, especially if you have nothing to charge your Qs on. So this champion is pretty hard to play consistently. He's really good in lane, but he's not that good right now. And also doesn't have the easy Blade Little King Hole Breaker combo anymore. I think the champion probably fell off pretty hard. Okay, he's not D tier though, like he's not D tier. Okay, maybe C tier then. Yorick though, yeah, Yorick in my opinion is A tier. I don't think he's as good. Is he as good as this one's? Maybe he is actually. Okay, so you have very bad early game. That is, Yorick is pretty bad early game, but insane strat tech afterwards, after level 6, insane split push, really good items. He was unironically one of the most fun champions to play for me. Actually, I want to check his win rate. Yo! No, he has got to be 80. He's not as good. He is good. He's really good, but I don't think he's S tier, actually. No, but he's really good, though. I love Yorick so much. I used to hate the champion. I love him. One of my favorite champions now. I absolutely love Yorick. But yeah, like I said, a lot of your matchups, you're going to lose priority in the early game, and then you get added to spawn, and then you land E, and then, like, enemy loses half their HP, and then boom, you instantly win lane. And level 6, you get perma Eddie. Brace, I hope you get to play against Vayne every game. Alright, last top laner, Zac. Zac is the only tank I would advise you to play if you wanted to play the tank in solo queue. He is probably S tier. No, A tier, because he's a tank at the end of the day. Insane stat check. Insane sustain. Insane laning phase. Insane engage for team fighting. He lacks in split pushing. Zac has been one of the highest winning top laners for a very long time now. And if I was looking to pick up a tank or like a neutralizer that is kind of like almost a bruiser sometimes, or like a juggernaut, I guess, Zac has got to be that champion. What? Okay. Or putting Zac in S tier.